Welcome to the Speaking Podcast. You can find all our episodes on speakingpodcast.com. We're also on BitChute and YouTube, and you'll find the links in the podcast description. I also have 4 other podcasts: The Crypto, Meditation, Learn Polish, and The Awakening, and all can be found on rycon.com. Today, my guest, originally from Germany, now in the States, Brigitta. I'm not even going to, I tried it. You can do it. You'll speak it and it'll sound so much.
Hoeferle.
It sounds so much beautiful when you do it, and I don't want to, So, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Roy, for having me. It's fun. And you know what? I always think that amongst Europeans, at least Europeans get my name right, but I guess not, and it's totally fine.
And I was watching your YouTube channel and you introduced yourself, and I practiced it a few days, but yeah, it's just, yourself, you get sidetracked doing other things, and I go back and I look at it, how it's pronounced, instead of writing it, how I actually would say it, and I didn't do that this time. So, but at least now, so you might let the audience know what you're up to.
Yes. So what am I up to? My name is Brigitta Hoeferle. When I introduce myself in the English speaking world, people say, well, but, especially here in the United States, well, that's not American. Well, no, it's not. And I was born and raised in Germany and am now living the American dream. Moved in 2004 with my little toddler daughter and my husband to the United States to build a Montessori school, because I always wanted to go to Montessori school. Being an educator myself, I thought this is incredible school. I want to have that for my children. So we did that. And the majority of my family said, oh my gosh, Brigitta, you are absolutely crazy. What are you doing? Of course, they're saying all of that in German. What are you doing? What if it doesn't work? And I said, yeah, but what if it works? And, I'm not a person that looks at the glass half empty. I'm always the glass might be coming to an empty. How can we fill it? And of course, looking at the space that is in the glass to be an opportunity to be filled with even more good stuff. So there was a lot of feedback along the way as I was crossing cultures with a little toddler and my husband. My husband was a journalist at the time. I was an educator. And I thought, you know what, I'm just going to do that. And amongst building the business, I then became pregnant again and had our second daughter, who was born in the US. And, now our kids are 16 and 19, and our 19-year-old just moved back to Berlin. So you never know what you do and what you're building it for. All I can say is I'm glad that our children went through the Montessori programs and have a great education. And I know that they are set up for success. And I couldn't be more proud. So there's a proud mama speaking. But in the midst of that, Roy, building my business, there were some hard times. 2008 here in the US, the whole, real estate bubble bursted, and it's a private school that I have, and most of the kids that came to my school were children from realtors or mortgage lenders or, insurance people. And from one day to the next, they pulled their children out of my school because they couldn't pay the tuition, because they didn't know what's going to happen. People lost their money overnight. And I thought, man, what am I going to do? Am I also going to have to quit my job, quit my business, close the doors, or am I going to persevere? And I did some reading and some studies in that time, and I saw that highly successful companies usually come out on the other end of a pandemic, of a bubble burst, of some sort of crisis, because when they persevere through it, that's when they become stronger. And through that, I poured a lot of just goodness and learning into myself and into my staff, and we came out of it. And now through the pandemic, we actually grew to 125 students. So that's what I'm up to. I own 2 educational facilities, and I love what I do.
Excellent. Love it. And because I know that you've done a lot of studies as well. So is it 3 degrees that you've got?
I have a marketing degree, and I have an education, science and social pedagogy degree. I love to build. I love to do sales. I love to continue to pour into myself. And because I think leaders are learners. So when I stop learning, I start dying, and that would be really sad. So I like to continue to learn and educate myself. I have a diploma in the Montessori method from ages 3 months all the way to middle school. I'm a Grandmaster of neurolinguistic programming, but all that to say is not to toot my own horn, but really to say, man, if you're a leader, and I'm pretty sure that your listeners are leaders, continue to pour into yourself, because there's still I think we only use about 8 to 10% of our brain, of the capacity that we could actually use it. And it's sad that people are not wanting to learn more. And I think that's when they tune into your podcast to learn more as well.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm continuously learning. I'm doing courses. I mean, I read average about 100 books. I just want to learn more and more. And the more I learn, the more I realize I don't know, and I need to learn more. You know, I'm listening to podcasts all the time when I'm commuting as well. And it's like, so yeah, I think, yeah, you're like what you said, you know, if you're not learning, you're dying. You should never, like the amount of people that you meet that they won't even read one book after they leave school. You're like my child, now my youngest child, he's 8, and I'm having a kind of game with him. I bought him 50 books. Like his native language is Polish, but I bought him in English because his English is fantastic. But what I've realized is his reading and writing wouldn't be, because he's got it in school. He does a small bit, but it's basically up to me to make him better at kind of reading and writing. So what I do is I read him the book, then he must read it. So we're having the competition who reads the most books. And I mean, we're up to, we're only 3 weeks in basically, like, and he's at 8 and I'm at 4. So, and I know, but like,
you better do some catching up.
Exactly. But the thing is, I'm not forcing him to do it. He wants to do it, and you can do these things in a fun way. And I mean, obviously, with what you're doing, and like, do you apply the NLP to what you're doing as well in the schools?
Yes. So that's a great question. And I love that your son is kind of out reading you. And that's, when we create a fire in someone else's belly by and really igniting it through, motivation is intrinsic. We cannot motivate someone else, but we can inspire them and we can persuade them. And then it's like a little hamster in a wheel. And, once the wheel runs, it just suddenly runs all by itself. It creates momentum and then it just goes from there. And I think that's what you're seeing. And yes, I learned more about NLP in my school. So I first built the Montessori School, and the first 3 years, they were rough. I'm not going to lie, right? They were rough. We came from a different country. I tried to do things the German way in the US. That didn't fly so well. I thought, I have all of these degrees. I know what I'm doing. I'm an educator. I know marketing. I know how to build a business. I was 34 at the time. And I came into a small community with, I was asked to sit on and serve on the Chamber of Commerce board. And I was around that boardroom table with men that were at least 25 years older than me. They were all white, old men, and this young girl from Germany, right? Well, what does she know, right? And honestly, Roy, I was cocky, and I built the business for my own kids. I built the business for my own ego as well. And I had to do some looking in the mirror when I had teachers come in. I trained the teachers, I poured into them, right? The Montessori method costs per teacher about $3,000. So I had to continuously add education to these new teachers that were coming because I couldn't hold the old ones. So eventually, in the beginning, I said, well, these are, these teachers that come and go, they're dummies. They don't know an opportunity when they see one. When it happened so many times over and over that I went, wait a minute, there's one common denominator here, and that's me. That was a very, very bitter pill to swallow. But at least I was able to swallow it, because I think a lot of business people or a lot of business owners don't even get to that point. right? So I had to look at, do a check-in in the mirror and go, okay, so what am I not learning? What am I doing wrong? Where am I the dummy? And again, like you said earlier, Roy, we don't know what we don't know until we go on that journey to find out. So where's my knowledge gap here? And that's when I found, NLP, neurolinguistic programming, and I learned how to actually communicate with the other people, aka my teachers, my staff at the school, so they would understand it. We would speak the same language. We would have linguistically, there was not a problem, but on a deeper level, on a subconscious level, I was not able to speak their language, although we both spoke English, but their coded language. And I was not able to persuade them in a way that they were open to be persuaded, and then actually, do what we needed to do to serve these children in our school. So I started just to learn NLP. And for the ones that don't know what NLP is, it stands for Neuro-Linguistic Programming. It's the meta program of our language, of any language. And it's very, very, it's a tool. It's a communications tool, right? So I started really to pour into myself in terms of NLP, and I continued to learn more and learn more and learn more. And over the years, like decades in learning, I became a Grandmaster of this communications methodology, and that made a huge difference in my business. And out of that, I was offered to buy the center of NLP that was established in 1986 by one of the co-founders here in Atlanta. So that's how I ended up with 2 educational facilities. And Roy, you probably can appreciate that with an 8-year-old at home. Children are innocent by nature, right? It's the people around our children that will have an impact that will either allow them to grow and thrive, or screw them up and put, just stupid ideas or negative thoughts into their head. So when I was offered to buy the Center of NLP, I said, this is perfect, because I have been, my goal to teach children and educate teachers to teach children, that's established, that's done. The now pouring into adults to become better parents, to become better entrepreneurs, to become better thought leaders, to become better C-level executives. That was for me the missing link, and now I have both.
And just curious, because I've read a few books on the NLP, never studied it, but because I know what you're doing, and it's very positive, and I love what you're doing, because I see there's so many people. I mean, I don't know, is it intentionally, but basically they don't really teach their children properly, whether it's the food they're giving them, sitting down with them, talking to them, just understanding them, even just going down to eye level with them, instead of looking down and giving out to them. But I've heard of NLP, can people use it in a way, let's say governments or whatever, against us? Can they manipulate us without us even realizing it?
So yes, and let me speak to that. And I'm glad that you asked that, because NLP is a tool. Imagine a carpenter. A carpenter walks around with a tool belt around their waist, right? Mostly out of leather. And they have all of these different tools on their tool belt. Well, one of them is a hammer. Now, a hammer can be used to build a cute little birdhouse for your kids, or a fence around your house, or even an entire house if you so choose to. A hammer, if used with an intention of hurting someone, can also be used to hurt someone, or to demolish, or to destroy. And in our communication, we do exactly the same thing. Oftentimes, we do it subconsciously. Like our neighbor, she's from Italy, and I've heard her, scream at her little 5-year-old, and she would say, Eduardo, stupido. And I'm like, why are you telling your child that he's stupid? That's not okay, right? But she doesn't know better. for her, it's probably just sarcasm or funny or whatever. But it really, if she tells her child over and over again that he's stupid, then she is manipulating him into believing that, although that's not her intention. So to come back to your question, the difference between manipulation, which any communications tool can be used to manipulate others. So the difference between manipulation and persuasion is the intention behind it. And that's it. I'm going to say that again, because it's so powerful and people need to hear it. The difference between manipulation and persuasion is the intention, and that's it. So the how you use a hammer is the intention of what you're going to do with it.
No, very good. And like with Eduardo next door and the mother screaming at him, sometimes that's got a chain reaction. Perhaps when her parents were doing the exact same to her, and she just assumes that's normal.
Yeah, and you got a really good point. And because we are all being programmed. I'm going to say NLP again, neuro-linguistic programming. Neuro is your brain, right? It's our operating system. It's where our experiences, our thoughts are stored, how we take in information. We have little cabinets, if you will, that how we store information. So that's our operating system. Linguistic is our communication. And although I'm pointing to my mouth, communication is so much more than just the words that we're saying. It is how we're saying it, our tonality, or how we're not saying it, the pauses and the silence. And the biggest part in our communication, in our linguistic, is basically our body language, the things that we're non-verbally communicating, the way our eyes speak, the way, we react to something quickly, in terms of, if we smell something that we don't like, you get this look of disgust or this look of frustration or whatever the look may be. So our body has its own communication. It talks its own language, and it's the biggest part. If we look at Albert Morabian and the Morabian communications model. So it's our words, which is the smallest part in our communication, our tonality and our body language. So that's the linguistic part. The programming part, so neurolinguistic programming, the programming part is the behavior that we have an influence with our thoughts and our communication on ourselves and onto others. So as people are listening, they're already making up their mind going, oh, what Brigitta is saying, this girl from America, yeah, what she's saying, that really makes sense. So it's going to show up in the listener, if we would see the listeners in front of us right now, in their body language, in how I'm not programming you, but yet you have made up your mind of how you feel about what I am saying. So there's a behavior that I am impacting with how I show up, what I think and what I say or not say. So we are constantly programming ourselves with our own thoughts, our own, sometimes it's like, stinking thinking. They're often not nice things that we tell ourselves. And we wouldn't even allow other people to talk to us like that. And yet we do it to ourselves. So we're constantly programming ourselves. And until we don't realize what we are saying to ourselves, it's not going to change. Until we realize that I cannot call Eduardo estúpido, it's not going to change. But it starts out with the awareness of what am I doing and what is the counter program? Because we are constantly programming ourselves and being programmed by others. TV programs, advertisement, thoughts from other people, opinions, our boss, our spouse, our kids. We're constantly being programmed. Now we got to be aware of what's my counter program. Do I want to accept that intentionally, or do I have a counter program for that?
One thing I've noticed actually is when we grew up, we start school in Ireland very young. So we were 4. We were made kind of sit down, fold your arms and put your hand in your mouth. So we had to fold our arms for so long. And I've been at events and there's been speakers that would say, that people folding their arms are blocking the information from getting in and they're not paying attention. But for me, I am really focused when I'm sitting down, because sometimes people can make an assumption on what they believe is correct.
Yeah. Don't ever assume. I teach my clients, if you are, and I love the folding the arms story, because my husband also likes to sit with his arms folded. It does not mean that he's closed off. It also does not mean that he is focused. It means that he's super relaxed. That's his relaxed pose. So I program my clients, if you're not certain, don't jump to conclusions. Ask a question. And when you ask a question, you give the other person an opportunity to talk about themselves, and you actually learn more about them. And that means, asking a question that is an open-ended question, not a yes or no question, of course, right?
No, exactly. And with Montessori then, because I've seen it. I mean, unfortunately, the education system throughout the world, has been corrupted, and it's kind of based on memory. There's nothing about emotional intelligence, just all the different skill sets and everything. And is that something that you kind of apply, you're conscious with? Because I think you're planting the seed when they're coming in at the 3 months or 6 months, whatever age that they start, because, they're constantly learning, whether it's just learning how to use their hands and their feet, or, whatever age that they, leave you.
Well, let's look at the programming again, because the Montessori influences the NLP and the NLP influences the Montessori, and they go really nicely hand in hand. So, and that means when you use NLP and any communications methodology with intention, with positive intention. Okay. So, Montessori, has been around for 130 years or so now. And Maria Montessori, who's the founder of the Montessori method, went out and looked at, she grew up she was a single mom in Rome, Italy. And there were so many kids in the streets of Italy, of Rome, that were just rebellious behavior, stealing, vandalizing.
That's because their mothers were probably saying, Eduardo, stupido.
Exactly. There you go. Now, see, I just needed you to put all of that together. Exactly. So she took in these children that most of them were homeless and gave them meaningful things to do. First of all, she showed them how to take care of themselves, how to bathe themselves, how to mend their clothes. And then she created all of these hands-on materials to visualize and allow the hand to manipulate the materials, with a tactile sense, manipulate the materials, like with little beads. So one little bead is the number 1, and then 10 beads is 10, and 100 beads is 100, and so on and so forth. So through her studies with these children and giving them meaningful things to do, she also found, wait a minute, now they have meaningful things to do. Suddenly they're not rebellious anymore. Suddenly they're not frustrated anymore, because they know that they can actually move something, that they are a part of a society, and that they can contribute to being part of that society. And it made them less frustrated, and therefore less rebellious. And she started writing her books around that. So in our traditional schools, we're being programmed to sit down all day. In your case, fold our arms so we're focused and we're not fiddling around with our arms or doing whatever. We're also, in our traditional schools, are programmed to write everything and listen to the teacher. In Montessori, we don't have to sit at a table. We can lay on the floor. We can have a mat and lay on the floor and do our work on the floor. If a child wants to do that, we can actually learn walking around, because some children learn better walking around. Not everyone is meant to lay on the floor or sit at a desk or walk around. We're all as unique as our fingerprint. And Maria Montessori 130 years ago already started implementing that. And I applaud her for that, of really recognizing that it's not one size fits all. That's not what we're meant to be. We're meant to be unique individual people. And when I see that now in my own children, they've gone through the Montessori schools ever since they were born. They were both in the classroom with me from the time I came out of the hospital, and they were in the classroom with me. And just recently, our 16-year-old came home from high school, and she says, I really like Andrew, our new math teacher. I really like Andrew. He's a nice guy. And he wants me to take AP class, which is, like a college level class next year in senior year. And I really like math. It's really easy for me. And I said, that's interesting. Why do you think it's easy? She says, I don't know. There's something inside of me. I just get it. And I'm like, interesting. Do you remember when you were 18 months old, 3 years old, and we manipulated and maneuvered all of these golden beads in the Montessori classroom? We laid the foundation. She was programmed. She programmed herself by touching and by manipulating in a very playful way. She made all of these mental images that they're ingrained in her subconscious mind, that she's now being able to use to visualize the numbers that she's working with in math.
I wish that more of that method would be applied, because not all Montessoris unfortunately are like that. There's a lot of them that have been infiltrated as well, kind of set up by the same system. And I look at it as the education system, where they kind of want them, like you said, just listen, fold your hands, write down, to be working in a corporation, that you're not entrepreneurial, that you're not creative. They don't want you, like they've taken out art out of a load of schools, they've taken out music and everything. And I think that by actually changing, because I look at all the problems going on in the world, and I believe it's that we have to do it at local level. And I think it's the children, because the children can teach the adults, because the adults, it's the one thing that no matter what happens in life, their child usually is priority. And a child can actually, it can be the other way around. I can do things to make sure my child, play chess and stuff like that, and all these different things, but I know that he can inspire other, or you give the child the right education in a friendly manner, he can go home, and there might be a bit of tension, there might be just different thought process that they can just learn from him, because they're paying so much attention to the child.
Yeah, I've had, and you're so spot on with that, Roy. I've had parents come to me at my school. I'm out of the day-to-day operations now, but I had parents come to me and they say, Brigitta, how is it? It seems like you have a different child in school than we have at home. And I said, well, first of all, we set up clear boundaries, and within those boundaries, the children are free. They're free to choose. Now, do they have to, especially as they go into elementary and middle school, do they have to go through math and English and the sciences and all of that? Yes, absolutely. But they can choose. There's not so from 8 to 9, we're going to have math. And then from 9 to 10, we're going to have biology. And then from 10 to 11, we have geography. No, they can choose it, which makes it for a teacher in a Montessori classroom, where there's many teachers, it makes it harder, but it's so much more rewarding for the kids, and it's so much more rewarding for the parents. So yeah, I'm all for having a positive influence. I'm all against negative programming, specifically from parents that don't even know what they're doing, because like you said, they're passing down old beliefs. I had a conversation with a client yesterday, and I asked her, so, think back to when you were a child, what was one of the things that you continued to hear about money, because she's dealing with some money management in her life. Think about, what have you heard about money when you were growing up? And she says, well, first of all, money is the root of all evil. That's the first thing that she heard, right? And I said, well, why is that? And she says, oh, it's in the Bible. And I said, well, I want you to look that up if that's truly verbatim what it says in the Bible, because it's not. And then the second thing was, she said that her dad always said, money doesn't grow on trees. And I said, that's interesting because you're right, money doesn't grow on trees. But if you start looking around, you're going to see pennies all around the ground. When I walk the dog in our neighborhood, there's not one time that I come home that I don't find at least one penny. The other day I found 2 quarters on the ground. Money doesn't grow on trees, but it's around you. All you got to do is go down and pick it up. It's right there. So it's the awareness.
That happens with a load. I mean, that's an international thing. So many people, I mean, I'm hearing it constantly. What scares me is they have these conversations with the child next to them and they don't realize, they think the child is too young to understand, and it's going straight
in.
Oh,
no. Yeah. And the younger the child, especially in that imprint phase, the younger the child, the more the child just soaks it up. Maria Montessori wrote a book, and it's called The Absorbent Mind. It's like a sponge, right? The child does not judge the information that it soaks up. It just goes right in, and then it stays there. Within our imprint phase, it goes in, and then it just stays there. And the more often they hear it, the deeper it stays. So now with that awareness, as parents, as thought leaders, as teachers, we have an opportunity. We have a calling. We have, we must put the right things in. And really, and I'm going to pick that word again, program our children where they can become whoever they want to become. And not put limitations on them. Oh, you're just stupid, or oh, you're too fat, or look at you, you're just a stupid little dummy. Aren't you so cute? You're just a stupid little dummy. No, not even if you put a cute in front of it, doesn't make it adorable. So as you see, I could really work that, really passionate about it.
But in proper order, like I wish everybody was like that, because at the end of the day, that's how it's gone. A ripple in the water, you change, you have your children done right, their children are going to be, it's not, it's once they get it, it's not that they lose it, so like, yeah, you're an author as well. Have you written a book?
I've written a book. I've written all of our curricula. I've written all of the curricula for the school, for the Montessori School, based on Maria Montessori's writings, of course. And I've written all of the curricula for the Center of NLP. We have taken, of course, the original NLP trainings from Richard Bandler, which we fall in direct lineage to. Richard Bandler and John Grinder are the co-founders of NLP. They're actually mathematicians that deciphered language, which I always find very fascinating and interesting. So yes, I've authored a book, and I'm writing a second book right now.
And is there many Montessoris that actually follow from what she started? You said it was the 1800s or something that she started creating.
Yeah, in the 1900s. So Maria Montessori is the founder, or the brainchild, if you will, of the Montessori method. Her name is Maria Montessori, and she is she's the I think she even got a Peace Nobel Prize. Her son Mario Montessori, I think he just passed away a few years ago, but he was the only child that she was carrying and built the Montessori method around, as she was a single mom. And she said, something's got to give. Right? We cannot continue to do school the same way. So, often as educators, when teachers go through university, they learn about, of course, all the social pedagogy as becoming a teacher. And then they might highlight independent methodologies, teaching methodologies like Waldorf, right? Steiner created Waldorf. And then there's the Montessori method based on Maria Montessori's teachings. So Waldorf and Montessori they're both great methodologies and beautiful ways of how we can teach our children, but they're on complete opposite of the spectrum. So in Waldorf, the child is empty. We must fill the child with information, right? And it's always a big group of children, and they're all filled with the same information. So that's Waldorf, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's beautiful. My dad went to a Waldorf school. And then we have Montessori, where the child is already full. It's already equipped with all of these luscious and beautiful gifts. And individually within the Montessori environment, it may blossom, and it may come out, and it may grow into that it's already given from birth onward. So Maria Montessori comes from that mindset of education starts at birth. And I would even say education starts before birth, because I remember our children, when they were in my womb, I would play classical music for them. And it wasn't until I really hit me of what I was doing during that time. Our children flew before the pandemic. They flew to Germany for the summer months to be with their grandparents. And the first time our little one, she must have been 11 or so, flew by herself. And she was at grandma's house, and she called me up. It was the middle of the night there, and she's just sobbing. She's tired, jet lag. She doesn't know where she is. So she's FaceTiming me, and she's just crying. And she would not stop. Like, this kid, 11 years old, was determined that she's going to go to Munich, to get in a train, to get to the airport, to fly back home. Like, there was no wiggle room. Like, this is what I'm going to do. I'm flying back home. I've had it here. And I've only been here 5 hours. So I was on FaceTime with her, and I was still working. And I said, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to turn on some classical music. And I remembered I still had that baby classical playlist on my iTunes. And I turned it on, and I said, you're just going to have the phone beside your bed, and I'm going to be right here, and we're going to stay on, and I'm just going to play music while I work. And you can talk to me, and we can have a conversation. And she says, yeah, that's a good idea. And then as soon as I hit that music, it's like something switched in her. It was the soothing that she must have remembered. Just the soothing, and she fell asleep. And the next day was a new day. She was like, oh yeah, I was just totally overtired, and it was a new day.
Yeah, I'm convinced as well. Like, some people don't pay attention during the birth prior to it. Like, and I mean, I remember when my ex-wife was pregnant, like, I'd always talk to the baby, in the belly, and just rubbing, just saying, looking forward to seeing it. And I mean, I believe the energy is there. They understand what's going on, and you're putting the positivity into it.
Yeah. And imagine all of the adults now that might have not experienced that might have gone through, in their family through hell and high water, or just not had a supportive family system, right? There's still an opportunity for them to learn. The older we get, the harder it is to let go of old beliefs, but that doesn't mean that it cannot happen. It can. Like I said at the very beginning, leaders are learners. And when you continue to pour into yourself, and when you continue to really want to make a difference in your own life, so it's not perpetuating into the future with your kids or with your, nieces or nephews, then you got to make a break. But before you come to that point of wanting to make a break, you got to be aware that it's not working for you.
Absolutely. And like, I know you do the coaching as well. Yeah, are you teaching coaches, or are you actually just a coach yourself?
Yes and yes. So I coach coaches. So I certify coaches. I also serve on the International Coaching Federation board here in Atlanta, and so I coach other coaches, because I don't know if you noticed, Roy, with, interviewing other people, specifically over the pandemic, there were a lot of people that thought, oh, you know what? I'm going to be a coach. And there are too many people out there that call themselves a coach.
They spend $20 to get the certificate for it. And then it's scary, actually, because they could be putting somebody totally down the wrong direction based on their belief system.
Exactly. That's exactly the point. And that's scary. So ICF, the International Coaching Federation, does quality control on coaches. And if anyone ever of your listeners ever looks at a coach, make sure that they're certified, that they're not just like you said, a $20. Oh, let me just have a coaching certification. Oh, this is a good idea. Run for the hills. So yes, I coach others. I coach high-level executives and business owners, and I certify other coaches as well.
And because I had that written down about being the board member of the International Coaching Federation. So for a coach, what do they have to do? Like, do they have to study through a certain field, or is it that they're a coach from different organizations and then they kind of register and they do continuous? I don't know anything about. I know that I've had coaches on my show, and I know there's aspiring coaches. Hopefully they won't do the $20 route, but you might advise what's the best procedure for somebody.
So there are different coaches for different professions, right? There's the leadership coach, and there's the business coach, and there's the health coach, and there's all sorts of the NLP coach in my case. So there are coaches that can be or the life coaches, where I like to say, I'm just going to put this on a sidebar here. I say be aware of life coaches, because most life coaches that I know don't even have a life. Or the worst is abundance coaches. Most abundance coaches that I know are not abundant whatsoever. So, be mindful of that. Be very, do a lot of vetting around that. So to become a coach, you first got to go through hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of very thorough coach training. So you got to go through, I can't remember how many, 120, 125 hours of coach training to really have a deep understanding of what coaching is and what coaching isn't. Most coaches that have not gone through really thorough coaching studies think that coaching is telling someone. No, coaching is everything but telling someone something to do. Coaching is the art of questioning. So there's the hours of the coaching, and then there's the hours, and this is for ICF. Then there's the hours that you got to put in and actually train coach with a superior. That's not the right word. With a mentor coach. So you got to put in hours and hours of coaching with a mentor coach, where the mentor coach sits in on pro bono coaching sessions and gives you feedback. So the do's and don'ts. And that's very powerful, and it has to happen because, like you said, there are too many people out there telling other people things that they have no business, and telling them and passing on their old beliefs or their non-supportive beliefs to others.
Okay, very good. And is it a yearly membership or something monthly that people pay for to be part of that?
So in order to become I'm going to speak on NLP coaching now. In order to become an NLP coach, you've got to go through the NLP coaching certification. That is a 3-month ongoing curriculum. And then at the end, you get the certification. And then with that certification, you go through ICF, you have a mentor coach, and then you got to put in the hours of pro bono coaching. And then you got to go through the application process through ICF, and you pay that once, or you pay that once a year to get that. And then, so there are 3 levels in that. There's the bottom level, the ACC, and then the PCC, which is the professional level, and then the MCC, which is the master level. So you go through those 3 levels, and they build upon each other. And then you got to do like a teacher or like an insurance agent or a realtor. You got to put in credit hours every year to uphold the quality of your coaching practice.
Yeah, because in PMP is kind of project manager professional, same thing. You have to do so many different things. That's but I like that, because I mean, especially say if you're looking at a doctor or something that's not continuously learning, and there's some of them that are like that. It's scary. They should be kind of staying on top of their game to make sure that they're giving you the best advice and medication or whatever it is to make you better and healthy.
I agree. I agree. Yeah. Anyone that says, "Oh, I already know that," that's a big red flag. Run.
Exactly. And another thing there, because we're part of like the pod match, and you've got your profile, and I've got my form that you fill in it. But there was one of the things I'd like to, V8 communication engine. I haven't heard of something like that. What's that about?
So V8 communication engine. It's a fun way of applying what I teach in NLP, because what we established earlier, NLP is a communications methodology. Wait a minute, this is the card. Okay, so imagine a V8 engine, right? A V8 engine has it looks like this. If I don't know, not some of our viewers cannot see us, so I'm going to describe what I'm doing. So I have 4 fingers on my left hand and 4 fingers on my right hand, and they're kind of in a V. My hands are meeting at the bottom and they're kind of in a V. And it's these cylinders that are constantly pumping, right? In order to get the machine to go, all 8 cylinders have to pump to move forward, to get the machine going. So in our communication, what I said earlier was that our communication consists of words, tonality, and body language. So if we just look at the words, because most people think, oh, our communication are the words that I'm saying. No. Per the Moravian communications model, our words are only 7% in our communication. So if we do not get the words right to the people that we're speaking to, we're not firing off 8 cylinders. We might be firing off 2, and I'll show you how. So on the one side, on the left-hand side, we have the value codes, and I have a green card here, which is disappearing a little bit on my green screen. So we have the highly knowledge people, we have the very nurturing people, we have the high action people, and we have the people that like to plan. These are all in our being, in our communication. We are all 4 types, right? These are personality types that are based on values. We're all 4 types, but we all have one dominant code. So a lot of my clients are high knowledge. They want to have all of the information, all of the data. They want to have the big picture so they can then do the research. I personally am a very high action. I love just to go and do it and get feedback from error and do it again. So there is no right or wrong. It's just the different personality types that are out there. Okay, so that's the V8 engine. I'm sorry, that's the left side of the V8 engine. On the right side of the V8 engine is how we store information of how they're represented to us. So when people speak, you can, when your ear is trained, you can detect, are they more of a visual person? They take in information more visually. Are they more of an auditory person? They hear, they're better taking in information auditorily. Are they more kinesthetic? They are, very feeling kind of people, or are they more digital? So are they more of the thinker? So see, hear, feel, and think. That's the other side of the V8 engine. So now we have 4 cylinders on the left and 4 cylinders on the right, with the green one showing. Now, because we are all 4, but on both sides, we have one dominant code. So in my case, I am in my values, I value fun, freedom, and flexibility. That's my biggest values. And on the other side, my representational system is highly visual. So what does that tell me? That tells me, first of all, who I am, but that also tells me that if I am not learning to speak the other codes in our language, what I said earlier, because NLP is all about communication, I'm only firing on 2 instead of all 8. And that's a problem, because if I'm not able to jump in and out of the other codes, I cannot build rapport to someone else. I cannot meet the person that I'm speaking to on the other side because I don't know his or her language. That means that I'm only firing on 2 cylinders instead of 8. That was a great question. And I know I went into it quickly because I teach this in like 4 days.
And I've heard of actually some speakers do it as well. And just so that they'll actually connect with their whole audience, they'll cover all of what you've just mentioned to make sure, because once you're in, you don't just kind of go, oh, and then you switch off. You're kind of, once you've realized, oh, they've got me. And just finally, actually, because I see you've been on stage doing stuff for Hoeferle, yeah?
Yes. Yeah. I was the fast track female trainer for Hoeferle.
Okay, so you might just tell us a bit about that, because I mean, obviously it shows the caliber of your speaking, because he's internationally well known, and you'd have to be at a very high caliber to get in there to do that. So what did you'd learn from him, but what were you doing yourself on that?
So I was, I learned from him, but he actually, Robert Hoeferle and another trainer within the Hoeferle community saw the opportunity of me speaking NLP. And being, they didn't have to teach me. I already have it. See, when you're dealing with people that already have the knowledge, then you can build upon that even more. So being on the Hoeferle stages, I did a lot of value in sales. I did a lot of value in these value systems. I just developed 2 years ago or so. I trained a lot in this methodology, which is called the bank methodology. And that's where I learned a lot of people and got to travel all around the world. Hoeferle, for the listeners that don't know who Hoeferle is, he wrote several books, and I think the most important one, or the one that he's most known for, is The Secret of a Millionaire Mind. And he wrote a lot of curriculum for peak potentials as well.
Excellent. So listen, I've thoroughly enjoyed our conversation. How can people get in contact with you? And is there some place that they'll be able to find out about the V8? Because I'm sure that's of interest to everybody, because I think it's actually, whether you're the speaker, the coach, or you're aspiring to be either, it's something that you should learn.
I agree. I totally agree. And if you're just a parent, right, you need to know this. So how do people get in touch with me? Really easy. You can go to centerofnlp.com, centerofnlp.com, or you can also send us an email to Brigitta, Brigitta, at centerofnlp.com. I have a little gift, and you can probably put that in the show notes too, Roy. I have a success patterns success laws checklist for everyone. I didn't talk about the success laws at all today, but I want to give it as a gift to everyone, and I'll send you the link. It's basically on the centerofnlp.com website under trust, and you can find it right there. But I'll send you the link as well. It's centerofnlp.com/product/NLP success laws checklist. I'll send it over to you.
Brilliant. Okay. Listen, thank you very much, Brigitta. And I'll make sure I'll have all the links in both the audio and the video versions.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much.
So that's all for the Speaking Podcast. You can find all our episodes on speakingpodcast.com. As mentioned, we're on BitChute and YouTube. Be sure to give us a thumbs up, 5-star rating, and share with your friends. It all helps. Until next week, take care.